Hi, I'm Bill Coppel, Chief Client Growth Officer at TradePMR, a Robinhood company.
And I'm Ryan Neal, Senior Editor at TradePMR Robinhood. And welcome to the Synergize podcast live.
That's right, Ryan. We're live here at the JW Marriott in Tampa, Florida for TradePMR's signature event, Synergy25. And we had an opportunity to sit down with Roger Overby of Skyway Capital to talk a little bit about what he does.
Skyway Capital is one of our marquee sponsors, and I'm really excited about this conversation because I've been to lots of industry events where M&A is always a topic, but it's always about how to help advisors sell their practice. But as our listeners know, a lot of advisors work with business-owning clients. They help manage some of the company finances, maybe they help with the retirement plan. But when it comes time for those clients to sell their business, a lot of advisors don't get a seat at the table until it's too late. So Roger joined TradePMR Chief Revenue Officer Rob Dilbone on the Synergy stage to talk about how advisors can be sure they have that seat at the table for those major liquidity events and how they can use that to help add value to their relationship with the client. So Roger, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it very much, Bill and Ryan. I'm excited to be here. Been fun so far.
It's great to have you with us. Just a little bit more about Roger. Roger is Senior Managing Director at Skyway Capital, a middle market investment bank specializing in mergers and acquisitions, capital markets, and private capital advisory services. To learn more about Roger and Skyway, please visit our show notes. So let's just jump right in, okay?
Okay, all right.
Your great presentation yesterday. I learned a lot, but I think our listeners are going to even learn more. So tell us a little bit about Skyway and who what are the kinds of firms that you serve?
Yeah, so Bill, thanks. So Skyway was formed in 2002 in Tampa. Firm's 23 years old now. Headquartered in Tampa, office in Atlanta. Probably have 40 folks around the country. Salespeople in Seattle, LA, Houston, Boise, Idaho, Chicago, Miami, Jacksonville, and Greenville, South Carolina. So we got folks scattered all around the country. We spend most of our time focused on mergers and acquisitions, M&A for family-owned and founder-led businesses. Those businesses can be run the gamut from small business to a large business, $4 to $5 million of EBITDA, 25 million-ish of enterprise value, all the way up to 30, 40, $50 million of EBITDA. 300, 400, 600 million of enterprise value. Guys, we've probably sold, 250 companies over the last 24 years, $15 billion of proceeds to those owners of those businesses. Every day our goal is to have a conversation with a business owner about their future plans for that business, whether it's we're going to sell the business completely. We have relatives in the business. Maybe it's our children. Maybe it's a father, a mother, a key employee that's in the business. How do we go about that? How do we protect those people? How do we whiteboard out exactly what we're looking for when a transaction closes? Gotcha. And it's just an incredible amount of fun.
That sounds good.
So advisors are often in the business of future plans, right? So how do advisors fit in with what you guys are doing at Skyway?
That's a great question. So a couple of years ago, we actually had an advisor pick up the phone and call us about a client that they had for quite some time, second generation business. They've been managing the family's money for quite some time, but they had decided that they wanted to sell the business. And the company was quite large, roofing company in South Florida. And so the owner invited 6 firms like Skyway to come pitch the deal to see who he was going to hire to go out and sell the family jewel, if you will. And so the advisor invited us in. We wound up being one of the last 2 firms that they were considering. The other firm was Raymond James. And so, wow. Bill, the advisor's concern was, if Raymond James wins the mandate to represent and sell this business, that $200 million plus of closing proceeds would wind up in Raymond James's wealth management platform.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
And Ryan, that advisor would lose that relationship. And so the advisor was our biggest advocate. And as we went through that transaction with the advisor, kind of that light went off in our head, and oh my gosh, we need to be talking to as many advisors as we can, because if they have business owner clients, they could face that same dilemma at some point in time in the future, and we could be a great ally and resource and partner to help them out in that type of a transaction.
Yeah, let's drill down on that a bit, because my experience in the business has been, I don't know an advisor that doesn't have at least one client that's a business owner, and typically there can be somewhat of illiquidity in that relationship. Most small business owners in that range you talked about, whether it's 5 to 50 million in EBITDA, typically pour a lot of their assets and revenue back into the business. And so when they're building that plan, it becomes paramount in my mind that they begin to have that conversation. It could be 10, 15, even 20 years prior to that liquidating event. What kind of advice would you give advisors as they begin the planning process, or wherever they are in that planning arc? How do you go about, teeing up the idea that I can help you when it comes time?
And Bill, that's a great point, because you're right. We try and talk to advisors about the fact that their business owner clients, most of their wealth has been created by the increasing value of that business. So 80% of the value, 80% of their wealth is the value of that business, which is illiquid. And you're fixing to unlock that liquidity event. So it takes a good bit of planning in the future, because you're going to have accounting issues, you're going to have estate planning issues, you're going to have tax issues, you're going to have timing issues, and so we talk to advisors about, and we ask them the question, do you have an annual review with your client? And every advisor said, we absolutely do. We sit down, we go through a whole list of items we want to talk about, and we say, why don't you add the question, have you ever considered selling your business, Mr. Client? Or have you thought about when you would want to sell your business? Or have you thought about if you would want to sell your business? And so if they add that into that annual review, then they're uncovering that as part of their holistic total financial planning approach. It's just it's another avenue, another method that advisor can provide advice and help their client at what will be the biggest, potentially most of the time, the biggest liquidity event of their careers.
Great. So with that in mind, given that, a lot of advisors maybe haven't been doing this traditionally in their careers, can you share any type of tools or information for some of our listeners to help them get started and have those conversations with clients?
So what's interesting, Ryan, is that we actually have a library of materials at our firm that we use for advisors. We have things like little monthly reminders about, this was a transaction that occurred, last month, and this is something that you might share with your client. Oh my goodness, there was an HVAC company that got sold last month, and it just started me thinking, Mr. Client, wow, you're in a similar type business. This is a conversation we should have. But we have a whole education package that's driven by a monthly outreach to each advisor. And through the partnership with TradePMR, we'll be able to work on connecting and talking and reaching out to each one of the advisors on a pretty regular basis.
Great. And I guess real quick before we move to wrap up, are there any types of deals that you guys try to avoid? Do you work with anyone under the sun? Or I know you said there's a kind of area of focus, a specialization, but anything you guys like to stay away from?
So the only thing that we don't do is we're not we don't do M&A for RIAs. Okay.
Okay.
I know that there's a pretty active M&A market out there for the RIA industry, but that's not something we do. We focus on 5 main industry sectors. We're talking about business services, industrials, healthcare, financial services, and technology and telecom, and that's our area of focus. We're pretty much generalist within that area, but we've sold just about every kind of business you can imagine over the last 23 years. And we sold a business a year and a half ago in Silicon Valley. where we are now, our footprint it's a national footprint.
Gotcha.
So we could sell businesses just about anywhere, Bill.
Yeah, let me sneak in one more question if I can, Ryan. I think that one of the things I'm hearing, which I'm a little bit concerned about here, is that do you wait for the client to tell you that they want to sell, or how does the advisor begin to, we talked about getting into the conversation as their, in most cases, their largest asset. And I think that when you talk about an annual review you do with a client, it may be worthwhile for them to start to look at doing an annual review with them on their business and where they are in that life cycle, right, to get the conversation going.
Sure.
Because the question I really want to ask you is this: it's not a snap of the finger when someone decides to sell. What are the kind of hurdles that you see business owners have to jump through to get there, and that has an implication on where the advisor is going to sit in those kind of conversations?
Yeah, Bill, that's a good point too, because it is a long process, and there's a lot of emotion in this for the business owner of that family-owned business when they're considering a transaction to sell the business. And the earlier you can have that conversation, the better, because if they're thinking about a couple years out, that's kind of ideal. And because there are planning opportunities, okay? And the planning opportunities are dramatic. An example is at the point in time that we get an LOI, and a private equity buyer has said, we will pay $80 million for that business, that LOI literally becomes the value of that business that day. Therefore, if you haven't, the last couple years, if you wanted to gift some of that stock to your children, if you wanted to transfer it to other heirs, if you wanted to have any tax and planning issues, those issues need to be done prior to that moment in time. And so ideally a couple years out, okay? But we have a lot of firms that we do business with that are in the, what we call the pre-exit planning business too. And so if we get potential clients that are 4 or 5 years out and they need a good bit of work done and consulting to get to the point to exit, we have firms that we can refer them to that do that specific kind of work.
And that's a great point, Roger, because as you said, a lot of business owners think they need a valuation before they sell. But once that number is, put in stone, if you will, that sets the wheels in motion, and all that tax planning you're talking about should have been done, all the distribution perhaps of equity should have been done well before we get to that point. So that's a great lesson for people to take away.
Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right.
Okay, Ryan, why don't we wrap it up?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. So Roger, what we do here on the podcast is we close out by giving our listeners, wherever they are, sort of one actionable takeaway, something that they could bring back to their practice and in place to make a difference. So if you were to give them one piece of advice about everything we've talked about today, what would that be?
That one piece of advice would be to make sure the next time you're talking to your business client, you absolutely bring up that question. Have they thought about selling their business? And then the action item after that would be to pick up the phone and call us and contact us because we could help them very, very quickly ascertain if that's a transaction that might fit for us to help them with.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, it's a great answer, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it very much, Bill and Ryan.
That was great insight, Roger, and thanks for sharing it.
And thank you to anyone listening out there. Wherever you got this podcast, take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. All of that stuff helps the algorithm, helps get the podcast to more people. We really appreciate you, and follow us on social media so you can catch the next episode.
And I want to add my thanks to you as well. And as Ryan said, please watch for our next episode where we'll bring you more insights and actionable ideas designed to help you grow your business. And remember, the challenge is yours to capitalize on what the future offers.
This special episode of the Synergize podcast was sponsored by
Built for efficiency, designed for opportunity, Advizon is a transformative all-in-one platform that helps simplify advisor tech and modernizes the way you connect with clients. With a single source architecture, our unified platform is designed to bring portfolio management, reporting, billing, CRM, client portal, and more into one seamless experience. It's everything you need to help create a more personalized relationship with your clients and communicate more effectively without the chaos of disconnected tools. Discover more at advizon.com. TradePMR and Advizon are unaffiliated companies.
Looking to grow your wealth management firm? Gladstone Group is a boutique investment bank that can help unlock the value you've built in your RIA. With comprehensive investment banking, talent search, and valuation services, all under one roof. With over 850 successful M&A transactions, valuations, consultations, and talent searches, we match great people with great companies and great companies with each other. So whether you're buying, selling, or building for the future, our expertise helps RIAs make informed decisions that work to maximize value. Discover why the most sophisticated firms choose Gladstone. Visit us at gstoneinc.com to start your journey.
Since 1993, millions of investors have built their portfolios using tips from the Motley Fool LLC's online investment newsletters. As a sister company, Motley Fool Asset Management started with a simple question: how could we put the distinctive foolish investment approach to work for even more investors? Answer: ETFs built around the highest conviction stock picks from professional foolish analysts. These ETFs seek to outperform the market and deliver compounding returns for your client portfolios. Explore all of our foolish ETFs at fooletfs.com. Motley Fool Asset Management and TradePMR are unaffiliated companies.
All third parties mentioned and TradePMR are unaffiliated companies. The third parties mentioned are available for purchase and/or subscription through Fusion. Please contact the provider for information about their terms and conditions, as well as any fees that may apply.
If you want to join the conversation or connect with us, please visit us at synergizepodcast.com. This content is provided for general information purposes only. The views expressed by non-affiliated guest speakers are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinion of TradePMR or its affiliates. TradePMR and its affiliates do not endorse any guest speakers or their companies and therefore give no assurances as to the quality of their products and services. This channel is not monitored by TradePMR. TradePMR does not provide investment advice, tax advice, or legal advice. TradePMR is a member of FINRA and SIPC. TradePMR Inc. is registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, MSRB. TradePMR provides brokerage and account services to registered investment advisors. Custodial services provided by First Clearing. First Clearing is a trade name used by Wells Fargo Clearing Services, LLC. Member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer and non-bank affiliate of Wells Fargo & Company. Copyright 2025, TradePMR Inc. For a transcript of this episode with sources, visit synergizepodcast.com.